Hi students, we have to pass on to the next one, the birth control. What do you mean by birth control? I already mentioned about to prevent or to overcome population explosion. The only solution is birth control or adapting birth control methods. Now what is birth control? The voluntary use of contraceptive procedures. The voluntary use of contraceptive procedures. Conception means pregnancy. Contraception means preventing pregnancy, contraception. And those materials or methods adapted to prevent pregnancy or conception is called contraception. Conception, opposite word, contraception. Okay, so what is birth control? The voluntary use of contraceptive procedures. What for? To prevent fertilization or to prevent the implantation of the fertilized egg in the uterus. This is what is called the birth control. Preventing what is called fertilization phenomenon and implantation of the fertilized egg. Now what are the properties of what is called an ideal contraceptive? What are the properties of an ideal contraceptive? An ideal contraceptive should be user friendly. It should not affect the individual, the one who is using that one. Easily available, the second one. With little side effects, that is the third one. Should not interfere with the sexual drive. That is the sexual activity of the individual. That is called sexual drive. Should not interfere with sexual drive. Now what are the types of contraceptive? Actually, that is methods. There are two major types of contraceptive methods. Number one, temporary methods. So it can be used only temporary, not a permanent one. If you want to have a child, you can lift that one. Another one, permanent methods. This is nothing but the surgical sterilization. So once it is being done, you cannot have the child once again. So that is about the permanent methods. So temporary methods and permanent methods. Now again the temporary methods are further classified into number one, natural methods, following the natural way. Number two, the barrier methods. These are being used to prevent the fertilization process by preventing the meeting of the sperm and the egg. That's why it's called barrier methods. Now what are the methods under natural methods? Number one, periodic abstinence, or what is called rhythm method. Rhythm method, a safe method. Number two, continuous abstinence, avoiding. Abstinence means avoiding, away from. Then number three, coitus interrupters. Coitus means nothing but what we call the intercourse, the meeting of what we call the partners. That is called coitus interrupters, preventing the interrupters. Preventing what's called the coitus. Okay, lactational amenorrhea. So amenorrhea means absence of menstrual cycle. By means of continuous breastfeeding, one can prevent what is called conception. That is called lactational amenorrhea, being adapted by the females. Now the barrier methods, it may be in the form of chemicals, called chemical methods, or in the form of mechanical devices, just like diaphragm, wallet or condoms, etc. Then we have hormonal barriers in the form of pills, hormonal tablets, a combination of FSH, LH, estrogen and progesterone, etc. Then intrauterine devices, this is in the form of copper T, being placed inside the uterus for about nearly 5 to 10 years, prevent the meeting of sperm with the egg so that the fertilization does not occur. We'll see one by one. Under the permanent method, it is nothing but surgical sterilization. Sterilization means nothing but actually preventing the one to just produce the eggs normally and preventing the meeting of the sperm with the egg. That is called what is known as, that is sterilization, surgical sterilization. Cutting the fallopian tube or cutting the vas deferens so that it prevents the transport of the gametes and also prevent conception. So which includes, in male we have just what is called vasectomy, and female we have tuberctomy. Tomy means cutting. So this is nothing but actually cutting of vas deferens in male and tied up. This is nothing but the cutting of fallopian tubes and then tied up to prevent the transport of either the egg or the sperm to what we have the place of fertilization. So this is the major types. We have to go one by one. What are the different types? What is a natural method? and we have to discuss about these 4 methods under natural, then barrier methods 4, and then permanent sterilization, surgical sterilization, tuberctomy and vasectomy as a case in female and male. Okay. As I mentioned earlier, birth control methods are of 2 types, one temporary methods, another one permanent methods. Under the temporary methods, we have 2 types. One is the natural methods, another one the barrier methods. Now, under the natural methods, we have the following 4 types. Number 1, periodic abstinence, avoiding coitus at regular intervals, particularly at the time of release of egg from the ovary. That's called ovulation. Normally, you know that one ovulation occurs at about the 14th day of menstrual cycle. So during that period, you have to avoid coitus, thereby preventing the conception. So normally the ovum survives for about just 2 days, and the sperm alive for 72 hours in the female reproductive tract after the release into the what is called the uterus, or generally we can say the female reproductive tract. So coitus should be avoided during this time. Either just between, for example, there is called as a red period between the 13th day to 18th day, because the ovum is there in the reproductive tract. So it survives for 2 days. At the same time the sperms are released, it survives for 72 hours. So during that period, normally just once the egg is released from the ovary by a process of ovulation, coitus should be avoided because it occurs on 14th day. So normally we can say between the 13th to 18th day, you should avoid coitus to prevent the fertilization process leading to conception. Now there is a periodic, this is also called as rhythm method, safe method. Now the continuous abstinence. So it is the simplest and most reliable method to prevent pregnancy by not having coitus during defined period. The period facilitates what is called consumption. So avoiding coitus during defined period, that period facilitates conception. That's why it's called the simplest and reliable method. The most reliable method is what is called continuous abstinence. Keeping away, not to have coitus. Now coitus interrupters. Now it is being done by male. It is the oldest family planning method. The male partner withdraws his penis just actually before ejaculation, because ejaculation resulted in the release of the semen, thereby preventing the deposition of semen into the vagina. So the withdrawal of what is called the penis by the male partner, so the ejaculation of the semen is not there, just into the reproductive tract, particularly into the vagina. And the 4th method, what is called lactational amenorrhea. The last method under the natural methods is lactational amenorrhea. Amenorrhea means absence of menstrual cycle. Why is it called as lactational amenorrhea? Due to breastfeeding. What will happen? Because of lactation milk secretion, it arrests or stops amenorrhea. It arrests what is called the menstrual cycle, so that there is no periodic release of the ovum or the egg, thereby preventing the conception. That's why it's called lactation amenorrhea. Normally, menstrual cycle resumes as early as 6 to 8 weeks from parturition, that is from childbirth. After childbirth, the reappearance, the resumption of what we call the menstrual cycle only after 6 to, that is 8 weeks after birth. But the reappearance of ovarian cycle, the various stages, primary, secondary, tertiary, follicles, etc., that is called the ovarian cycle. But the reappearance of ovarian cycle is delayed for 6 months. This is because of the breastfeeding. Though menstrual cycle begins somehow 6 to 8 weeks, but the ovarian cycle is not taking place because of the breastfeeding. Now, this delay in ovarian cycle is called as lactational amenorrhea. Delay in what is called the ovarian cycle is called lactational amenorrhea. It is a natural method, no doubt about it, but it is not a reliable method. We cannot say 100% secure, just preventing the pregnancy. That's why it's not considered a reliable method. What is happening? Where does the stimulus come from? The suckling of what is called the baby during what is called the breastfeeding stimulate the pituitary gland to release the prolactin hormone. So the increase in production of prolactin occurs. That prolactin is responsible for increasing the production of milk. What process? The lactation process. This is number one. So suckling by the baby during breastfeeding stimulate the pituitary gland to secrete increased prolactin hormone in order to increase in the milk production. When the concentration of prolactin hormone is more in the mother's blood, it prevents menstrual cycle. How? By just suppressing the release of gonadotropin releasing hormone GnRH from hypothalamus. This is a releasing factor released from the hypothalamus to stimulate the secretion of gonadotropins. Once you have the secretion of prolactin is more in the concentration is more in the blood, it prevents a menstrual cycle by suppressing the gonadotropin releasing hormone from the hypothalamus and also the secretion of gonadotropins by the anterior pituitary gland. That's why there is no growth of the follicles, the ovarian cycle is not taking place properly, so no release of eggs, thereby preventing the conception. So that is called lactational amenorrhea. Simply because of the continuous lactation, the breastfeeding, what will happen? No menstrual cycle. This is because of also the hormonal secretions. Okay, so that's about the last method of natural one. Then we have to go for what is called the barrier methods and the temporary methods. What is the mechanism of lactational amenorrhea? Suckling by the baby during breastfeeding stimulate the pituitary gland to release the hormone prolactin to produce more milk. When prolactin is in high concentration in the mother's blood, it prevents the menstrual cycle. How? By suppressing the release of gonadotropin releasing hormone GnRH, gonadotropin releasing hormone from hypothalamus, and gonadotropin, the FSH, LH together called gonadotropin, and gonadotropin from pituitary gland. So the secretion of what is called gonadotropin releasing factor from hypothalamus and the secretion of gonadotropin from the pituitary gland. Gonadotropin means combining together of FSH, LH. So that there is no growth of the follicle, there is no maturation of the follicle, there is no release of the ovum. That's why we have the delay in what is called ovarian cycle. The various events happening during the formation of primary, secondary, tertiary follicles and the release of the egg together constitute the ovarian cycle. If the ovarian cycle is delayed for 6 months, there is no release of the egg, so there is no possibility of conception because there is no fertilization occurs. That's about what we call the lactational amenorrhea, the mechanism. And the temporary methods, the second method is a barrier method. In these methods, the main mechanism operating is nothing but the ovum and sperm are prevented from meeting so that there is no fertilization occurs. It includes the following methods or the barriers we can see. Now chemical barriers. It is in the form of chemical agents. The chemical agents may be in the form of foaming tablets. The tablets are being placed inside what we call the tract, the reproductive tract of female, that is particularly the vagina. It melts and forming a foam that prevents the penetration of the sperm to reach the egg. The second one, melting suppositories. These are all the same one, more or less tablet-like, and just actually releasing. When placed inside the uterus wall, that is inside the uterus, automatically or in the vagina, it melts and releasing what we have the substances which prevent the penetration of what we have the sperm. Likewise also the creams and jellies also used as what we have the chemical agents. All these chemical agents mainly prevent the penetration and also inactivate the sperms in the vagina. Once the sperms are inactivated, they are unable to move, the motility is affected, so they cannot reach the egg to fertilize it. That's about the chemical barriers. Now the next one, mechanical barriers, under which we have to go first one, condoms. The second one, what we call the diaphragm, the cervical caps and walls. Let's see later. Now the first one under the mechanical barriers, the condoms. These are thin sheath that covers the penis in the case of male, whereas in the case of female, it covers the cervix and vagina before coitus, thereby preventing what is called the ejaculated semen to enter into the reproductive tract, that is what is called actually the uterus. To prevent the entry of ejaculated semen into the female reproductive tract, particularly just what we have, the uterus. Now, as a result, what will happen? The conception or pregnancy being prevented. The condom should be discarded, thrown away after a single use. It cannot be used for multiple use. Then, the condoms are made of polyurethane, or what we have, that is latex, just like a rubber, and also from lamb skin, the newborn lamb. That what we have, the young one of sheep is called the lamb. The lamb skin is very soft, and that one can be used, very soft, that can be used as what is called a condom. Condoms are also made from what is called the lamb skin, the soft skin. So that's about what we have, the condoms. Then we have to go for another same, the diaphragm, cervical caps and walls that can be used in the case of female to prevent the meeting of the sperm with the egg. They are made of plastic or made of rubber, particularly not plastic, they are made of rubber. Now we are talking about the barrier methods under which we have completed the chemical barrier and the mechanical barrier. We talked about the condoms, how far it can be used. Now condoms should be discarded after a single use. It can be used only for single use but not for multiple use. Now condoms are made of polyurethane or latex and lambskin, I mentioned already. Now the second mechanical barrier being used by the female, diaphragm, cervical caps and walls. Now these are made of rubber and are inserted into the female reproductive tract, what for, to cover the cervix before coitus in order to prevent the entry of semen or sperm into the uterus. That's about diaphragm, cervical caps and walls. They are made of rubber being used by the female, being placed actually at the neck of the uterus, what is called the cervix, before coitus in order to prevent the entry of the sperm into the uterus. Now the third barrier methods, what we have, hormonal barrier in the form of pills, hormonal tablets. What is the main function of this hormonal barrier? It prevents the ovaries from releasing the egg or ova. That's called ovulation is prevented by this hormonal barrier. And also it thickens the cervical fluid. So when the cervical fluid is more viscous, it prevents the entry of the sperm into the uterus, thereby keeping the sperm away from the egg. Okay, that's about actually the hormonal barrier. Now the hormonal barriers are available in the form of pills. The pills are used to prevent what is called ovulation. How? By inhibiting the two hormones FSH and LH. Inhibiting the two hormones FSH and LH, thereby preventing ovulation. We have actually simple pill made up of only one hormone or a combined pill. A combined pill is the most available one in India, most commonly used contraceptive pill. We have also one type of pill, one-time pill, what is called Saheli. Saheli. So this is a one-time pill. All of the tablets are being taken continuously after what is called the 5th day of menstrual cycle. But this is a one-time pill being taken only once during each month. So it was developed by Central Drug Research Institute, Lucknow. Central Drug Research Institute, Lucknow. That is in India, which contains non-steroidal preparations. The hormonal pills are mainly steroidal preparations containing the hormone, mainly for example progesterone and then estrogen. They contain synthetic hormones, progesterone and estrogen, progestin, or we can say progesterone. But this is a non-steroidal hormone. when compared to the combined pill. And it contains what is called a non-steroidal preparation, Sencroman. This is a non-steroidal preparation present in the tablet, what is called just a pill, contraceptive pill, XII, that was developed by CDRI, Lucknow recently. So Central Drug Research Institute is located in Lucknow only. They have made different, actually, that is combinations of pills for different purposes. One such is for XII, a contraceptive pill, a one-day pill. It contains non-steroidal preparations called Centrocroman. That's about what we have the hormonal barriers. We have to go for the last one under the temporary methods, intrauterine devices. Okay, and I learned about a few words about the XII and also the hormonal barriers, what they contain. The contraceptive pills are taken orally, hence called oral contraceptive pills. What is their role? They prevent ovulation. How? By inhibiting the secretion of the two hormones responsible for the growth of the follicles and the ovulation process, namely follicle stimulating hormone, LH hormone. That is a role. Now, combined pill is the most commonly used contraceptive pill. So it contains synthetic hormones like progesterone and estrogen. Now, we have, I mentioned already, one-time pill, XII, a contraceptive pill by Central Drug Research Institute, that is Lucknow in India. That is a tablet made by that one-time pill. It is a non-steroidal preparation, what I mentioned earlier. It contains what is called a non-steroidal preparation, Centroman. Now the last one, under what we have the barrier methods, the fourth one barrier methods, intrauterine devices. Now these are all what we have the devices inserted by medical experts in the uterus, particularly through vagina. That is what's called intrauterine devices. Now the intrauterine devices normally are of different types. Some of them are what is called hormonal intrauterine devices, copper releasing intrauterine devices, and also we have what is known as non-medicated intrauterine devices. Okay, so it is an ideal contraceptive method for females who want to delay the pregnancy. It is the most popular method of contraception, that's IUDs, in India, which has a success rate of 95 to 99%. Now we have to go for the different types, the three types of what is called intrauterine devices with the examples. I already mentioned about IUDs. These are all the ideal contraceptives for females, those who want to delay pregnancy. Now it is the most popular method of contraception in India and has a success rate of 95 to 99%, a maximum. Okay, what are the types of IUDs? I mentioned about already. Number one, copper releasing IUDs. Number two, hormone releasing IUDs. And the third one, non-medicated IUDs. Now the copper releasing IUDs, normally copper T, they are called as copper T because they are in the form of capital T with fibers etc. at the terminal end. This is what we call copper T, C7. T-shaped structure being placed in the uterus. Okay, now these IUDs, I am taking what's the copper releasing IUDs. The main function releasing copper, free copper as well as copper source into the uterus. That will normally, you know that one just suppresses the sperm motility, and that's the main role. So copper releasing IUDs, these IUDs differ from one another by copper content. We have different types. For example, I mentioned CUT380A, CUT380, AG, Multiload 375, Nova 7, CU7, etc. They differ from each other by what is called the copper content. What is the role? All these actually properties release free copper and copper source. Free copper and copper source. And these free copper and copper source in the uterus suppress the sperm motility. Suppress the sperm motility. So free copper and copper source into the uterus and suppresses the sperm motility. That's the role played by them. Now they can remain in the uterus for 5 to 10 years. and that one prevents what is called actually pregnancy, because the sperms are highly sensitive to copper ions. So the copper ions normally kill the sperms and increase the phagocytosis of what is called, that is the sperms. Now the examples are CUT 380A, CUT, that is copper T 380Ag, Multilode 375, Nova 7 and CU7, etc. So they're all T-shaped with a different actually attitude in working in different, just what is called releasing the amount of copper ions into the uterus, thereby just inactivating or suppressing the sperm motility. That's about one, that is what is called copper releasing IUDs. We have to go for hormone releasing IUDs and non-medicated IUDs. The second type of IUD is hormone releasing intrauterine devices. Example, progestasert and LNG20. Okay, just LNG20, that is nothing but actually gestrel, Lenovo gestrel 20, are commonly called intrauterine system. What is their role? They increase the viscosity of the cervical mucus, so that what is happening, they prevent sperms from entering into the uterus, because the mucus is very thick, so the sperms are unable to penetrate the mucus to reach the uterus. Now the non-medicated IUDs, they do not have any, that is medicine, just like hormones or copper, etc. And these are made of simply what is called plastic or stainless steel. For example, Lippus loop is a double S-shaped plastic device. This is what is called Lippus loop. It's being placed in the uterus to prevent what is called conception. It is a double S-shaped what is called plastic device. That's all about. We have the temporary methods. Under the temporary methods, we have the natural methods and barrier methods. Okay. Under the barrier methods, we have the chemical methods, mechanical barrier. We have what is called actually contraceptive pills, the oral contraceptive pills, and also that's a hormone barrier. And finally, we have the intrauterine devices. It's the most available device used in India. And the success rate is also high here, 95 to 99%. So that's all about. We have the temporary methods. We have to go for the permanent methods, the surgical sterilization method, the tuberctomy and vasectomy. So far we have studied the temporary methods of birth control. Now we have the permanent birth control methods. These are adapted by the individuals who do not have any more children. Now it is nothing but what is called strategical sterilization. It is nothing but surgical sterilization. So surgical sterilization or permanent contraceptive methods are advised for both male and female partners. What for? To prevent any more pregnancy. It is advised for both the partners to prevent any more pregnancy, because we can do that surgical sterilization both in male and female, either in male or female in a family. So what is its main function? It blocks the transport of gametes to the site of what is called fertilization, and prevents transport of gametes and prevents conception, and blocks and prevents conception. Female, this method is called tuberctomy, and male it is called vasectomy. So what is tuberctomy? Tomy means cutting. Here the fallopian tubes are cut and tied to prevent the transport of egg to the site of fertilization. Now tuberctomy. So number one, it is a surgical sterilization in female. Here a small portion of the fallopian tubes are cut. Fallopian tubes are both. Suppose this is the uterus, we have this is the fallopian tube. So a small portion of the fallopian tube is cut and tied up. Small portions of the fallopian tube of both are cut and tied up. Okay, and that is being done through small incision in either in the abdomen, or we can do it through the vagina. So it is a surgical sterilization in female. Here a small portion of both the fallopian tubes are cut and ligated. We can say ligated means tied up. So that you see that when the egg is unable to reach this place, so the egg released by the ovary doesn't reach the fertilization place. That's why you see that one, tuberctomy. Now this prevents fertilization as well as what we have the entry of egg into the uterus. So fertilization is prevented as well as it blocks the entry of egg to reach the uterus. That is tuberctomy. Now in the case of men, this is called vasectomy. There it is nothing but it is a surgical sterilization in male. Here a small portion of, just here what we are doing, the fallopian tubes are cut. Where in the case of vasectomy, the vas deferens are cut through an incision on the scrotum. Okay, that's about what we in the case of male. I write on the board what is vasectomy. It is a surgical sterilization in male. Here a small portion of both the vas deferens are cut and tied up. Okay, through an incision on the scrotum, the bag-like structure which encloses the testis. Okay, what is vasectomy? That is nothing but the cutting of vas deferens. So it is a surgical sterilization in male, tuberctomy in female. Here in male, vasectomy. Here a small portion of both the vas deferens are cut. There in tuberctomy, the fallopian tubes are cut and tied up through what is called incision made in the abdomen or through vagina. Here the same just statement. Here a small portion of both the vas deferens are cut and tied up through an incision on the scrotum because the testes are large in the scrotum. So anyway, the vasectomy prevents sperms from heading off to penis, as the discharge, the ejaculation normally doesn't contain the sperms. Okay, so surgical sterilization male and that one tuberctomy in female. Here the vas deferens are cut, there we have the fallopian tubes are cut. Okay, through an incision either in the abdomen or the vagina. Here the incision is made on the scrotum because the testes are large in the scrotum, the bag-like structure. So vasectomy prevents normally sperms from heading off to penis, means not reaching the penis, as the discharge contains no sperms, only the fluid secretion from the various glands without any sperms. That's all about what we get the various permanent and temporary birth control methods. Then we have to go for the remaining part, the medical termination of pregnancy, etc. in the next class, STD, etc. Thank you.